Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here. In this video, we're taking a look at the BLUN PS4, PS5, Nintendo Switch, PC, Android, and iOS controller. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, BLUN sent me this for a fair and honest review, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. Taking a look at the box, on the back of it, it says Multi-Sensory Simulation of Vibration. It's got a 6-axis gyroscope, LEDs, a touchpad. It's multi-platform compatible. We got the Switch, PS4, PS3, PC, Android, and iOS. It's got a 3D joystick speed that can be adjusted. A handle vibration can be adjusted, and it's got macro keys built in. Opening up the box was a bit of a struggle. It was really crammed in there, so I just kind of tore into it. Once I took everything out of the box, we can now see what was in it. First up here is a USB-A to USB-C adapter, a fairly lengthy USB-A to USB-C cable, as well as a lightly detailed instruction manual. And last up in the box is the most important thing, the controller. Now, the first time I picked this up, I noticed it had a nice weight to it. It felt very similar to a DualSense in terms of overall weight. On the back of the grips on the controller, there are 2 buttons, and I wish the DualSense had these. On the top of the back of the controller, we can see a light button to adjust the LEDs. There's also a switch here to put it in different modes, for example, PlayStation, Android, and Switch. As I went to take a look at the bottom of the controller, we can see it has separated a little bit. And I don't think this happened in shipping, it just seemed from factory it wasn't put together the best. Fortunately here I could just squeeze this and snap it back into place. Although it was a little unfortunate that it wasn't technically fully assembled by the time it got to me. On the top of the controller there is a USB-C port, which is nice to see. It's not micro USB. And turning this controller on is pretty simple. You just press the home button and you'll see everything come to life. This controller feels very similar to a DualSense controller. It doesn't necessarily feel as good, but for a third-party controller, this feels really nice. And here are the LEDs, which also look pretty good. Now, I was curious to see how this stacked up in terms of weight when compared with the DualSense controller. So here is the DualSense controller sitting at 283 grams. Going over to the BLUN controller here, and it's surprisingly close at 282 grams. 1 gram shy of the DualSense. And just for comparison, here is another third-party controller coming in at 217 grams, a heck of a lot lighter. Now for those curious, here is the DualSense controller right beside the BLUN controller, and we can see that the BLUN is not necessarily a one-for-one copy, which is kind of nice. The top is a little bit different, and the touchpad is noticeably different. Here's another look at the controllers side by side, and we can see that the BLUN controller is a nice bright white, where the DualSense controller is a little bit more gray. The face buttons are also considerably different. The BLUN controller labels them, which is extremely handy if you're using this on different consoles. One thing I found incredibly interesting was the vibration motors in this BLUN controller. They are very odd and very loud. I'll give you an example of how they work here. The harder you pull down the trigger, the louder they get. Now, connecting the controller to the Switch was simple and straightforward. You do have to plug it in initially, but once it's connected, you can just disconnect it and it works absolutely fine. Although I did notice a couple of things upon my first connection here. The first issue here is pretty apparent. We can see Link walking towards the screen as if I was holding the joystick down. Although I'm not holding the joystick down, so it did appear that there was some issue with the pairing. I did end up unpairing and repairing this, and it did fix that issue. So here is proof that the issue is fixed once I reconnected that controller, but this presents the second issue. There is quite a bit of latency here in wireless mode, an unacceptable amount in my opinion. It is extremely delayed. And the third issue I ran into was pretty obvious. The gyroscope is not functioning as intended. No matter how I tilted this controller up, it went up at an angle on the screen. I wasn't quite sure what exactly was going on here. I tried disconnecting it and reconnecting it, and no matter what, the gyroscope was not reading correctly. And even in wired mode, the issue still presented itself. In my opinion, the gyroscope isn't really usable. And for those of you curious, here is a quick peek at some of the LED modes when you press that button. If you want the LEDs on the joysticks to light up, all you have to do is just click them down at the same time, and that will put those blue little rings around the joystick. Some people might like this and some people might not. At least the option is there to turn it off if you want. Now, one thing I didn't go over in this video is the fact that they say this controller has built-in dual speakers to help you listen to audio through the controller as well as the TV. This controller is priced at $49.95 or $69.99 regularly. That is a premium price for something they're marketing as a premium controller. So let's go over what I liked, what I didn't like, and whether or not I'd recommend the BLUN controller. And we'll start out here with what I liked. First and foremost, I like the weight of this controller. It feels substantial. It's very close to a DualSense controller, off by 1 gram. And it feels a lot heavier than some other third-party controllers out there. The weight of this makes it not necessarily feel cheap. Now moving into things I didn't like about this controller. First and foremost, the box was in good condition. The packaging within the box was in good condition. Yet the controller, I wouldn't say was damaged, but it wasn't fully put together. I had to clip that top panel down, and that was a little bit unsettling. The second thing I didn't like was the gyroscope. The gyroscope on this one wasn't accurate at all. I was going up and down and it was registering side to side on an angle, and that is, I would say that's pretty much a showstopper. And speaking of showstoppers, the third thing I didn't like was the fact that the latency on this was so poor. There was a very big delay when I pressed a button and when it would register in game. And this was happening on the Switch, on the PlayStation, on the PC, and even on Android. The latency in this controller is pretty horrible. Now, as to whether or not I'd recommend the BLUN controller, and I think this controller has a ton of potential. It's compatible with a bunch of different systems and it's got a bunch of different features baked into it. Those are two really good things. However, I think the drawbacks to this far outweigh the positives. I mean, the fact that the motion controls don't work, well, not work as anticipated, and the fact that the latency on this is extremely horrible basically make the controller unusable. Priced at $70 here at regular price, or even at $50 on sale, or even at any price, and this controller gets a hard pass from me. I don't recommend it. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. Let me know your thoughts on the BLUN controller in the comments below. Was I too harsh on it? Was I not harsh enough? Did I miss something? Let me know in the comments below. Shoutouts to BLUN for providing this for a fair and honest review. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos, don't tempt fate, save your state.